Hi stamping friends, this is Melissa Kerman with Melissa's Crafting Treehouse, and I have a super fun project for you today that is one of my 3 club and free card kit projects for the July-August 2020 projects, and I've got 2 examples to show you here. It's a fun fold. It does fold flat and fits into a standard size envelope, and the kits each have a different designer series paper panel from the Whale of a Time designer series paper, and of course this features the Whale of a Time product suite, which includes this Whale Done stamp set and the coordinating Whale Builder punch. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to start with some of my initial punching and preparation, so I'll get all my pieces ready. I've started with a piece of Pacific Point cardstock and punched out a 2 1/4 inch circle. Next, I'm going to punch out a shaded spruce circle with my 1 1/2 inch circle punch. And then I'm going to punch out the pieces that I need to create my whale. So the only pieces I need in my smoky slate are the whale body and an additional fin. Then I need the water elements from Balmy Blue cardstock, an eye from Pacific Point cardstock, and finally the bottom element of the whale in white. I'm going to use my little specks to stamp on the whale body using my Versamark and the fin. And I'm also going to use my Versamark with the little fish on my shaded spruce cardstock. And then I can start putting together some of my elements. I'm going to use a variety of adhesives. Since these are little itty bitty pieces, I'm also pulling in my take your pick tool as well with the putty end to pick things up as I need them. Now here I'm putting multi-purpose liquid glue on the back side of that little tiny white element and picking it up with my take your pick tool. But in truth, it's actually a lot easier to put that multi-purpose liquid glue onto the whale body itself right at the bottom, and then place the white piece on top. That way you're not having to worry about getting glue on your fingers when you try to pick up that small precarious white piece. For the fin, I'm going to use a glue dot just because it's a little bit easier to manage, and I'm placing it so that I can see the bottom fin just underneath it as well, and a little bit lower down so you get sort of that perspective of the fin. Now for my eye, I'm putting the glue directly onto my smoky slate because generally speaking that's going to be a little bit easier and less messy. Using the multi-purpose liquid glue allows me to slide that shape to where I want it as well. So I'm going to put a few glue dots on the back side of my my large water element. And you might have to roll up or tuck in the glue dot so that it's not showing. For the small water, I'm going to use my paper piercing tool, roll it up just a little before I place it on there to make sure it doesn't stick out. And I'm going to leave it on the tool so I can place it where I want it to be. The whole whale element is going to be popped up on dimensionals, and I'm using a combination of small and large dimensionals to get full coverage on my whale. And then I'm going to attach my whale to my Pacific Point circle and the water elements above it to complete this element. I'm going to set those 2 aside for now and get started with a few other elements. Now I have different strips of designer series paper that I could use, and you can see they each look different. Each of the kits have different designer papers, so I can decide which one I like. And I think I'm going to try this one. You also have the choice of the front and back as well, but of course this is not oriented properly. All right, next I'm going to stamp my sentiment piece, and I've got this balmy blue piece of cardstock, and I'm going to stamp the sentiment, "Thanks a ton," in Pacific Point ink. Next I'm going to work on my decorative background element, and I've dry embossed a piece of Whisper White cardstock with my Seabed Embossing folder. So I'm going to use a couple of ink colors for this with my sponges, starting with just jade. So I'm going to color different parts of this with different colors of ink. Now I'm working with my pretty peacock. And last but not least, my Pacific Point. You can even leave some white areas as well, which looks really pretty. Next, I'm going to attach these two pieces together. And with the completion of this piece, I'm ready to move on to some of the assembly of my card, but I'm going to start with scoring my card body and the mechanism that makes this card work. So I'm bringing in my Simply Scored tool, and this piece measures 4 1/4 by 8 1/2, and I'm going to score it at 4 1/4, 5 1/4, 6 1/2, and 7 1/2. And then my mechanism piece is going to get scored at 2 1/4 and 3 1/4, and this piece measures 2 1/4 by 4 1/4. The dimensions and scoring details will also be in my blog post, and I'll also have this little graphic there as well. So we're going to start by folding up and burnishing all the score lines. And burnishing essentially means just giving it a nice crease so that it folds up easily and well. So I'm going to start by putting some adhesive on this flap here, and it's going to fold up like this, but you don't have to attach it in this awkward sort of way. There's a much easier way to attach it. So I'm going to start with putting adhesive all along the bottom edge and up the sides, and a little bit towards the center, but I'm going to leave this middle section open in case my mechanism piece needs to tuck inside. So as you can see, this card folds flat. So instead of having to fold it up in an awkward way like this and try to make sure that it's even, all you do is just fold it down just as the card will fold up to fit in an envelope. The same is true of your mechanism piece, but before we attach the mechanism piece, I need to attach this piece to the back of my card. All right, so this piece is going to come across the front here, and you can see that this back flap gets pretty close to the top of my box shape here, which is why I left this area open with no adhesive. Now I'm going to get started with attaching my mechanism piece, and the first thing I'm going to do is just lay this down so I can gauge where I'm going to be putting my adhesive. I'm going to use some tear and tape because it's nice and strong, and I'm just going to put a piece here so it's centered side to side, and another one at the bottom. And then this back flap is going to get attached to here. So I'm going to put 2 pieces of tear and tape along the top panel of my mechanism. So I'm taking off the backings of my tear and tape, and just like with the card, it's going to lay flat like that, so I can lay it flat and attach my mechanism centered side to side, and I want it about 1/8 of an inch up from the bottom. That way I'll be able to cover the bottom of this piece of cardstock with my strip that's going to go across the front. Next, I'm going to remove the backings on this back flap of the tear and tape. So now I'm just going to fold the 2 flaps down like that, and then press it flat on my card, And this back flap actually tucks down underneath my little square back there to create the mechanism. So there we go. So now I can begin my final assembly, starting with my sentiment piece in the upper right hand corner, my designer paper piece across the front, and then I'm going to attach my shaded spruce piece with the stamped fish. I'm just going to get my placement before I attach anything. And I do want to cover up this whole section of the Just Jade mechanism. And I'm attaching it so that when I fold it up, it'll fall just below the sentiment. And next I'm going to attach this circle, but I'm going to attach it with dimensionals. And I'm just going to place my dimensionals right onto my mechanism. And that way, instead of putting dimensionals back here where they might hang off the side, I'm making sure that they're actually in behind this circle. And there we go. Now I have just one more quick step, and that is I'm just going to put a white panel on the back side so I have a place to write a note. And as you can see, the card stands up, and there are my 3 different cards with the different styles of designer paper. I hope you've enjoyed this project, and just know that if you place an order in my online store of $50 or more and you use the HOSTESS code, you will get this and 2 other card kits in the mail from me. And these are my July and August 2020 projects. To learn more about how you can get free card kits, check out the link in the video description below. I hope you enjoyed my project today, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with friends, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks for spending some time with me today, and happy crafting!